A big thanks to NordVPN for sponsoring today's video. It's always great when you can get a sponsor for a product that you personally use and support. And that's what we have with NordVPN. And so you can go to nordvpn.com/censoredgaming and get a huge discount and 1 month free. One big reason why I use NordVPN is to be able to access online content as if I was in different countries. NordVPN has over 5,000 servers in 59 countries, and the speed is like not even using a VPN at all. It also uses its exclusive smart plate technology to improve access to content in other regions. Then there's Nord's no data logging policy, which has been independently audited, that they use next generation encryption and have a special kill switch feature, which means that if for any reason the VPN connection drops out for even a split second, your internet provider won't be able to intercept your data and neither will anybody else. And so again, go to nordvpn.com/censoredgaming and use the code censoredgaming at checkout to get a huge discount and 1 month free. A while back, the channel made a video on The Legend of Zelda: Ocarina of Time, and took a look at how the Spanish version of the game was handled, with the Spanish version of Ocarina of Time using quite a unique method of distributing the game to Spanish players, with there being no Spanish translation whatsoever within the game itself, and the game instead being bundled with a text guide that translated all lines of dialogue in the game, line for line, into Spanish. Now, following making this video, there was quite a lot of comments in the comment section from people over in Spain talking about the Spanish version of Final Fantasy VII and how Final Fantasy VII's Spanish translation is one of the worst Spanish translations ever created. Now, of course, Final Fantasy VII was groundbreaking in the RPG genre and is commonly regarded as one of the most popular video games ever created. And to be fair to the Spanish translation, the English translation was also quite rough in places, with this being a time in the video game industry where video game localization was very much in its infancy, and also being a time where companies seem to not want to properly finance and put the effort into translation, especially compared to what we thankfully see nowadays. But yes, despite Final Fantasy VII's rough English translation, the Spanish translation is in a completely other league. And just googling the Spanish translation of Final Fantasy VII will return lots of recounts from people telling everybody how bad it is. And for instance, the Spanish translation has earned itself lots of entries on TV tropes, under entries such as the translation trainwreck page. It's quite hard to imagine what went on here and why it was so bad, and it almost seems like a sizable portion of the dialogue was translated via machine translation such as Google Translate, and it very much appears that whoever did translate it did not have access to the game and perhaps couldn't even speak to anybody about the game as well. And when researching this video, I came across a great text-based let's play of the Spanish version of Final Fantasy VII with lots of screenshots, and there'll be a link in the description if you want to go check it out. Now, one big point of contention about the Spanish translation is how a lot of the female characters are referred to in the game. At many points, characters like Tifa, Aerith, and Yuffie are referred to as if they are male. For example here, and excuse my Spanish pronunciation, Aerith is called guapo. Now, this is the Spanish word for handsome with the masculine O added to the end. And so Aerith is being referred to as a handsome male. And this definitely makes the Spanish version of the game quite awkward and also hilarious at times, but also can be quite confusing. However, sometimes characters will even be referred to as both male and female in the same sentence. For instance, here the dialogue reads, "Eris, you're a very special boy." Nino means boy, but then una is the Spanish way of saying a for females. And so in the same sentence, Aerith is being called a boy as well as a girl. And yes, things like this can be found for most of the female characters in the game. Next up is the text that appears every time you miss an attack in battle, which in the English version is miss, but this was translated to murmur, which quite curiously means decrease. So in the Spanish version of the game, when you miss an attack, you apparently decrease an attack. Then there's Tifa's bar, the seventh heaven, which in the Spanish version is referred to as an almacén, which means warehouse, not a bar. And the translation for the word cool was pretty interesting, and this is referring to the usage of the word cool when it means attractive or awesome. Now, in the Spanish version, cool is translated to cold, So for example, for this line here where a character says pretty cool her, in the Spanish version it is how cold her, which changes the meaning quite significantly. The translation for preemptive was also especially unusual. Here it seems that perhaps they did not know what was meant by emptive, but thought it had something to do with the word empty. And so in Spanish it is translated to pre-bafios. Bafios being the Spanish word for empty, which means it's translated to something like pre-empty. And then another point is how some characters won't even have their names capitalized in text boxes when they speak, like seen early on in the game with this soldier. And then there's the lines that are just really strange in the Spanish translation, such as here where in the English version Aerith explains that flowers don't normally grow in Midgar, but that they do inside the church. In the Spanish translation, however, she says flowers don't grow in Midgar, but for some reason flowers do, which means the latter part of the sentence just contradicts the first part. And then something pretty interesting was seen with the safe combination in Shinra Mansion. Here you have to find the combination for the safe via a series of hints. In the English version of the game, one of the hints is behind the ivories, short of T and Ray. Ivory refers to the piano in one of the rooms downstairs, with T at the table and the sun's rays shining through the window. And if you check behind the piano, you will find one of the safe combinations. In the Spanish version though, no attempt was made to translate the hint, and it simply says detrás del piano, which means behind the piano. But then last but not least is the numerous ways that the term party was translated in the Spanish version. Now party refers to your party of characters in the game, your group of characters that you travel with along your journey. And often in the Spanish version it's translated to partido, which is like political party. But some other times it's curiously translated to banda, which means band, as in music bands or something. But then most hilariously, sometimes it's even translated to fiesta, meaning party in the sense of a big celebration. This is especially funny when Cloud is told that a fiesta is awaiting him upstairs. And then he goes upstairs, but there's no party, and it's instead quite a grim and serious part of the game. One of the comments on our previous video summed up the sentiment for this quite well. The comments read, "You guys should play Spanish Final Fantasy VII, with things like your party is waiting upstairs, translated as fiesta, and you get disappointed when you bring the beers, and no one seems to be on the mood for that." However, these are only just a few examples of the Spanish translation of Final Fantasy VII. Of course, a game like Final Fantasy VII just has so many lines of dialogue, and just so much of the game was translated incredibly poorly, which has led to the game's Spanish translation gaining so much notorious infamy over the years. What are your thoughts on the Spanish translation of Final Fantasy VII? As always, let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and a big thanks once again to our sponsors at NordVPN. Until next time, thank you for watching.